And bring in Joel Riddle. He's the CEO of Tamboran Resources, a company that controls 92% of the Beetaloo Basin with a gas field in the Northern Territory, the potential for hundreds of years of affordable gas from that development in Australia. Thanks for joining us, Joel. I read what you wrote in The Australian today and what you've been saying about gas, and the critical thing here for practical-minded people to understand that is if you want to go to a renewables model, if you love renewables, you've got to have more gas generation.
That's exactly right, Chris. What gas really provides is a dispatchable power that, when developed countries like Australia looking to reduce carbon emissions, the natural way to transition is to displace coal-fired electricity with gas-fired electricity. It reduces carbon emissions by up to 50% less. Particularly with gas coming out of the Beetaloo Basin, where the gas in situ to the reservoir is only 2 to 3%. This compares to other big gas developments around Australia that average around 15 to 20%. So there's nothing better for this country and the health of energy security in this country than developing new gas supplies out of big basins like the Beetaloo in the Northern Territory.
Well, we need it here. We're going to go to 80% renewable in this country, according to the government. Now, you cannot do that unless you've got a lot of gas generation to fill in when the sun's not shining or the wind's not blowing. But also the rest of the world needs it for the same reason. And that's why there's so much demand for our gas to be exported, isn't it?
100%. So we've seen LNG demand really take off over the last 10 years. It's projected to continue to grow at 4 to 5% in the next decade in front of us. And the reason for that is where countries are looking for reliable, low-cost energy that they can rely on to provide a low-cost supply. LNG is by far the best choice. And, the opportunity for LNG, when we look at potential solutions to reduce carbon emissions, the biggest opportunity we have in the world is using LNG to displace coal-fired electricity. And some of the biggest carbon emitters in the world, including China, India, other parts of Asia. And so we want to be part of, I think Australia has a real opportunity to be a part of that.
Yeah, if we throttle their gas supplies, they'll just burn more coal.
100%.
So there's sort of 50% of your emissions reductions goes out the window.
And that's exactly what we've seen year to year over starting from 2022 to now, is that countries that are restricted on their gas supplies are in a position where they're shifting back to coal, which is exactly the opposite of a lot of the climate initiatives that we've seen.
Now, the thing about this is it's uncontroversial. This is logical. This is just the facts. So check it up wherever you like. This is the way our energy system has to go. Yet somehow gas has been demonised. Now, there's good news today in that the federal government, the Minister Tanya Plibersek, approved a whole bunch of wells in Queensland. This is an existing gas field, but it basically gives it permission to continue drilling gas out for the next 50 years. Now, that's just a practical admission from Labor that you're going to need gas in this country for the next 50 years. But you have the Greens leader, Adam Bandt. Have a look at what he tweeted today in response to that. He says it's almost a year since the devastating climate-induced floods in Lismore. There's no basis for that. And he says this is how Labor wants to market. More gas, more destruction, more fuel on the fire. Enough. Now, what's happened here? Because only 10 years ago, the Greens understood. They were promoting the switch to gas plus renewables. How are they getting away now with demonising gas?
Look, first of all, I want to applaud the government for taking the bold stand that it took in approving this gas project. I think it really gives the right market signals to investors around the world and here in Australia that gas is here to stay. And the other thing I'll say is that I'm very thankful to have some adults in the room.
Yeah, no, it's the right decision. The alternative would be unthinkable, though. But what about the Greens? Because they're trying to get the government to stop anything happening in gas. They opposed even this approval.
Yeah, so I think under the leadership of Adam Bandt, the Greens have really taken a far left radical view that I would even say, from my experience being in the U.S., it's left of the most radical left person in California. So they're in uncharted territory here, and I think some of the rhetoric that you've seen from the Greens and in the last few weeks have, it really puts a real focus on how dangerous some of these new policies that are being contemplated would result in damaging the economy here in Australia. I think it would, really put a lot of downward pressure on pain that the current Australian consumer is really feeling from inflation, from cost of living. If you want to make this problem even worse, then you look to deploy some of the policies that Adam Bandt is peddling.
Yeah, do what Adam Bandt suggests, and we'll be in a world of pain, and emissions will go up because our gas won't be used. They'll use coal instead. Thanks for joining us, Joel. I appreciate it.
Thanks very much.